Hey Bobcats, today I'm going to talk to you about our one-pager Outsiders project. We're going to be working on this project for the next week and a half. It's going to be due next Wednesday, and each day we're going to work on a different part of the project so that you know the pace that you need to be keeping up in order to finish this project on time. So on this slide, I have a picture of what your template is actually going to look like. Every single day, I'm going to have you work on a specific part, and you are going to upload just that part on Canvas each day. So you are going to be doing this work on paper, especially my face-to-face people. And so when you are done with that specific section for the day, you'll take a picture of that section, and then you'll do a file upload to Canvas so that I can check your progress and make sure that you are where you're supposed to be. I'm going to ask that you do not work ahead on this project, that you keep up with what the rest of the class is doing, and that goes for my virtual learners as well. You are going to receive a rubric for this project, so you will know exactly how you're going to be graded and what your expectations are. Your grade is final after next Wednesday. Since you are receiving a rubric, you are not eligible to redo this project if you don't like your grade in the end. So it's really important that you work really hard and that you meet the expectations each day. So this is an example of what a finished one-pager is going to look like. We're going to do lots of different types of one-pagers this year, but on this specific one-pager, you'll notice that there is color, there are illustrations, but there's also a lot of important text on this too. So you are going to be expressing your thoughts and sharing your answers with me mostly through the written word. And so you are going to be doing this by hand. So we're going to be practicing some of those skills where you are processing things from your brain all the way out through your hand on paper. So my face-to-face learners, you are going to receive a copy of this template on paper. So you are going to be writing everything by hand, doing all your drawings by hand, and so that's going to be a really welcome break for you guys. My virtual learners, you have a couple of different ways that you can do this. I am providing you a link to automatically make a copy of this assignment, and you can print the template at home if you have access to a printer, or you can get a piece of white paper and you can draw out the template. So just kind of copying what I have on the actual template onto a piece of paper. Virtual learners, you also have the option to actually make a copy of this and do all of your typing on the computer. However, there are two parts that you do have to draw, and that is going to be in the title section right up here at the top, as well as right in this middle section, which is the symbol. And so in order to get that part on your digital copy, if you're choosing to type this digitally, then you would need to do it on paper and then take a picture and upload those portions onto your digital copy. It's also very important for my digital virtual learners to tune in every single day on Zoom so that you know exactly what part we are going to be working on. This is your rubric breakdown. So you can see how many points each part of the project are worth. Again, since I am providing you with a rubric ahead of time, you are not going to be eligible to redo this project for a higher grade after next Wednesday. So please make sure that you really are studying the point values here so that you can have a really good idea of what type of grade you can get if you produce really high quality work. So the first section on here I have highlighted for you. This is the title, author, and genre section. And in this section, you can look at my example. My example is from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. But you can see that I do have the title of the book written as well as the genre, which for this book is fantasy. And then I have the author written as well. Now, notice that I did not just write it in pencil and then move on. I made sure that I used fonts, colors, images that really represent the mood of the novel. So there's this kind of mystical, enchanted, mood in the story of Harry Potter. And we know that in The Outsiders, it starts off a little bit dark and rough and gritty. And so you might think about what colors would symbolize those types of mood words, as well as maybe a font style or just different images that you can use to really capture how this story has made you feel so far. The next section on your one pager is the quote section, and you are going to choose our protagonist's most important quote. So in The Outsiders, the protagonist is Ponyboy, and I want you to look specifically at what Ponyboy is saying and decide what's the most important thing that he has said thus far in our novel. Now, there is not just one correct answer. You could justify lots of different quotes from him so far. So you are going to choose your quote and write it in the text box there. And then you are going to explain why the quote is important and what it tells you about the character. Now, I want you to notice in my example over here, I've got in parentheses beside my quote the author's last name as well as the page number that that specific quote came from, and that is what we call MLA parenthetical documentation. You have to provide that anytime that you use a quote so that you aren't plagiarizing. So in The Outsiders, anytime you use a quote, inside your parentheses, it would say Hinton because our author is S.E. Hinton. And then you would include the page number that you got that quote. Now, some of our books might divide our pages up a little bit differently because you all have different editions of the book. Some of you might be using the digital copy of the book, and so whatever copy of the book that you are using, those are the page numbers that you are going to go on. The quote section is going to be written in complete sentences, and your quote needs to be the exact quote from the story. The next part is characterization, and you can see that there are 4 different bullets. The 4 characters that I want you to examine are Ponyboy, Johnny Cade, Derry Curtis, and Dallas Winston. So with each of these characters, you need to give me 3 different character traits. Now, those are not physical traits. I do not want to know what your character looks like. I want to know what's going on the inside of your character. So if you look over for my Harry Potter example, I say Harry is brave, powerful, determined, and sometimes he's unsure of himself. So those are personality traits that he has. I want you to specifically look at the personality traits of our outsiders and write them here. You're also going to include 1 quote that tells us about that character and specifically highlights at least one of those character traits that you included. Remember, with your quotes, you are going to use the parenthetical documentation, and you can see that I've done that over on my example as well. The next thing that you're going to do is identify some internal and external conflict for our character. Inside this little bubble here, you're going to give examples of internal conflict. So those are conflicts that are happening inside our character's head. So you might look at Ponyboy and how inside, he is really trying to decipher if Derry actually cares about him as a brother, or if he really fits in with the Greasers since he's a little bit different, or maybe he's having some internal conflict about some of the things that Cherry says to him about how they're really not all so different. So there's lots of different examples of internal conflict. You're going to write out your example for me, and then you're going to provide a quote from the story that supports your example. You're going to do the same thing on the outside of your bubble for external conflict. So those could be the verbal conflicts or the physical conflicts that we're seeing in our story. So for example, Ponyboy gets jumped at the beginning of the story. You could also look at Johnny getting jumped. You could look at the conflict between Dally and Marcia and Cherry when they're at the drive-in. So there's lots of different examples that you can look at. Please make sure that you write out about your example, and then you also provide me with a quote to support that example from the story. Remember, with your quotes, you're going to use that parenthetical documentation. So within parentheses, you're going to put Hinton and then the page number that that specific quote comes from. Don't forget, you're going to do that every time that you see a quotation and that you use a quote from the story. The next part is the short answer response section. So you are going to write a short answer response question, and when we get to this portion, I'm going to actually give you some questions that you can choose from. You are going to write your question, and then you're going to actually answer your question using the full RACE format that we're going to go over this week in class. So you're going to want to make sure that you wait to do this part until we are ready to do this part as a class, so that you can be sure that you know exactly what that response is supposed to look like when we go over short answer response later in the week. Of course, it goes without saying, but on everything you put on your one-pager, you're going to want to make sure that you put forth your best efforts, so you answer thoroughly and thoughtfully, and you elaborate on all your thoughts, but also that you write in complete sentences, that you cite all of your quotes, and that you proofread your work, because that is going to be something that I look at on all of your written responses here. In the middle, in these two circles, you are going to identify one specific symbol for our story. I'm going to give you a couple of different symbols that you can choose from, and so you'll explain to me what they mean, and then you'll give me a quote to support that. So you can see right here in the middle, in my example from Harry Potter, a symbol in the story is the sorting hat. So I drew a picture of that sorting hat in Harry Potter. Then up at the top of my circle, I wrote my explanation. I wrote what that symbol really symbolizes and represents in that story. And then at the bottom of my circle, I have a quotation that displays that. Okay, so you can look at that example there. You can also see I used that parenthetical documentation. I wrote in complete sentences, and I justified my answer there. So again, this is the rubric. Please look at the number of points that everything is worth, and then here is my completed example, just so you have an idea of what your finished product will look like. You are doing this on paper, so it is very important that you are writing legibly, and that everything is very neat and that I can read it really well, so that you can get your correct grade for this assignment. You're going to want to make sure that you put everything in the right place, so that I know what parts I'm actually supposed to be grading for you, and you can get all of the credit that you deserve. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. We will be going into more detail each day as I assign you a specific part of the one-pager to be working on. Again, please do not work ahead on this project, because every day when we work on our specific part, I'm going to have you take a picture of your part and then upload it online so that you can get your progress credit for the day. Virtual learners, you'll also get your attendance credit this way, and I can be sure that you are pacing yourselves so that everybody should be able to finish on time for when this assignment is due next Wednesday. So if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am here to help you out if you need anything. All right, thanks, guys.